All right. Welcome to CyberTalk with Bob and Chris. I am Chris.
I'm Bob.
That's Bob. We were talking about intro music, so please let us know what kind of intro music we want. And if you say country, you're dead to me. The only acceptable answers are 90s rap and metal or heavy metal or hard rock.
Oh man, go for hard rock. I can't handle the rap.
Come on now, you're missing out. All right, we got some cool stuff to talk about today. Mainly, Microsoft was hacked. Now, I made some other videos on this, but I think we should deep dive a little bit on that and kind of go with like the good that's going to come out of this, even though on the surface it seems really bad, which it kind of was really bad. So do you want to talk about it? You want me to kind of kick it off?
Well, I actually posted a video, a thing earlier in the week that just kind of like touched on what happened with the U.S. State Department and the Commerce, and the fact that one of the cabinet members' emails was actually compromised. And like you said, there's bad things happening every day, but in this case, it looks like we might see some good stuff coming.
Yeah, when 25 organizations are hacked, including the U.S. State Department, the U.S. Department of Commerce, the U.S. Commerce Secretary, to what Bob was referring to, and Microsoft didn't know it until the U.S. State Department notified them that they saw malicious activity on June 16th. Well, it turns out the hackers had actually been doing what they were doing since May 15th, at least May 15th. So Microsoft had a consumer signing key stolen. They don't know how it got stolen. They're still trying to figure that out. But that key should have never been able to sign tokens inside of 365 to allow email access. And that's what happened.
Wow.
So they were forging these authentication tokens for all these email accounts, and they were accessing them through Outlook web app. And that's how they were doing. They were doing it through like an API to forge the token, and it should never have been allowed, but it was. So they patched it for everybody. So actually, everybody's 365 is now safer. And we're getting 31 security logs.
But actually, that one goes back to saying that it wasn't the local user's hygiene or the client hygiene. It was actually a service provider issue. And we go back and people say, I'm safe and secure because I'm using a cloud hosting provider. Guys, this was Microsoft. They had a bad policy. A key got out. The keys to the kingdom got out in this case.
Well, the signing key should have only worked for like Outlook.com or like Hotmail.com, but on the consumer side of it. But for whatever reason, they're when they signed the tokens, that should have invalidated them, and it didn't. It actually validated them. So they fixed that bug. But yeah, I mean, look, we entrust our data with cloud providers. It doesn't matter who it is, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, whatever. I mean, they can all have vulnerabilities and bugs and things like that that have to get fixed. The key here is the U.S. State Department, because they were paying for a high enough level, they were paying for at least E5. So Microsoft 365 E5 it's technically considered government high, but they noticed malicious activity and they notified Microsoft, and they were like, we don't understand how this is happening. And then Microsoft started diving into it, and that's when they found everything. So
wow.
Unless you were paying high enough, you wouldn't even get the logs to even look at this and notice this stuff. So that brings us to the other problem.
A lot of people. Well, just hold that thought for a second. But a lot of people it's like, well, I'm getting Microsoft email right now. I'm paying $3 a month or $5 a month for an email account. Isn't that the same security that we're getting on these other accounts? Which it's not.
No, and if you have multi-factor authentication turned off, definitely not. The way it works is you get certain logs based on what you pay. So sign-in logs or something that are included, you get 7 days. If you don't turn audit logs on, which we found is common for whatever reason with companies, they've never went in and turned audit logs on. Even if you were paying for the version like 365 Business Premium or E3 or E5, if you never turned audit logs on, there's no audit logs. When you turn that on, you're getting 7 days of sign-in logs, and that's it. So Whoever signed in or signed out in 7 days, that's all you get. Until you have that stuff turned on. And then after that, it's, whatever you pay for is what you get access to. Now, the good news is Microsoft has now announced that in September, everybody that pays is going to get 31 security logs. That's really going to help an incident response when accounts are compromised. The
How far
downside to
back
that,
did they say how far back those logs are going to be?
they did, but only for people who pay certain. I don't know if it's business premium or E3 it will go from 90 to 180 days. I'm assuming those 31 days, those 31 logs will go to 90 days.
Okay.
And then they expand it based on what you pay. Which, again, to everybody, like storing logs costs money. Bob and I talked about this, but in certain cases, Microsoft's storing the logs. They're just not giving you access to them unless you pay. The real key is what's being done with the logs. I think that's something that a lot of people miss. So even though you have the log, if you're not using a tool or some sort of analytics to look at the logs and actually notify you that something malicious is happening, it's just a log. So it's really good if you know that something happened and you call like an incident response firm or you talk to an IT, whatever, however you handle your incidents. If you talk to them and give them the logs, they can kind of piece it back together. But if you're not doing anything with the logs are just logs. They're just text files.
And that's another thing. This is not something that somebody's going to go look at on their own, because these log files are going to be so detailed of what's going on that people just not even look at them. So it really
can we find a person that can actually stare at a log all day? Like I legitimately want to find somebody that can actually do that and not go.
All the ones and zeros start looking the same at that point. So like Chris said, you need to have real analytics tools on top of these logs. But now that Microsoft is making this data available to everyone, it actually allows us to expand some of the tools that are people there and get some better data to know what's going on in incident response. Because if the bad guys get into an email account, now we can go back and go deeper and say, here's what they did when they were there. Did they go and change privileges or set up additional accounts or open up back doors so they can come back in later? And these are what's showing up in these logs. In the past, like Chris said, the only log we saw was access logs, who came in and when. Yeah,
and the 31 logs, they didn't exactly say what we're going to see, but I'm assuming it's going to be more about the actions that were taken, like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So did they make like certain forwarding rules on the account? Did they create a bunch of forwarding rules, things like that? Then you dive deeper in this. Wall Street Journal talked about this. CISA and the Biden administration have been trying to work with Microsoft to make these free for a year. For a year. And
it's
Microsoft was like, Microsoft was like, well, blah, blah, blah. But all of a sudden, Chinese, was it Storm 0558 is the ATP or is the APT? And now Microsoft is like, well, you know what? Maybe we'll make these free now. So they're being applauded for that. But like, we have to understand that they're not the only cloud provider out there that hides logs from people, that puts them behind a paywall. They're not alone in this. This is a common practice. It's time that the logs be made available for everybody, even if it's for a short period of time, 7, 14 days, 30 days, maybe you pay more for longer storage, but they need to be made available on every platform for everybody. And we need an easy way to extract them so we can run analytics against it, so we know when bad things happen. And if you need to go back further, you should have to pay more, because it does cost something.
Sure.
Like, you don't pay $3 for a mailbox and expect them to keep a year of logs. That's a losing proposition for Microsoft. Yeah, well, they're not making money on that. They're going to lose money on that. And Microsoft's not in the business of losing money. So.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying, Chris, really is that, it might be time that, that there is a minimum standard of service for people offering cloud services. That, you've got cloud service, but you also, part of that service has to be making real audit logs available for forensics, and it's just going to be part of the standard offerings now, because
and give us access to pull those logs out.
Yep.
Don't just give us the logs
in real time.
Force us to pay for maybe your company's analytics. Give us the option to pull the logs out. Microsoft's really good about that. They give you access to pull the logs out. Like, if you want to use third-party tools and stuff like that, you can use their built-in Azure Sentinel and run stuff through there. But like, if you want to pull stuff out, they give you all that access. Other companies don't. Now, if you're a big company like Amazon, Google, they give you access to that stuff too. But like, some just want to hide it and not give you that access. I think it's time to stop.
And I think what you said is really key. Is you want to be able to put it into your tools versus using their tools, because in your tools, you're going to have data from multiple sources. So we might see something correlated that, you're not going to see just on the Office 365 side or on the Google side. So we put it all together.
Yeah, take it. taking that data is so important. Being able to put it into some correlation engine and really kind of piece together all the telemetry you get from your cybersecurity program.
So Chris, this has been a lot of tech talk about talking about log files. What's this really mean to end users, and how can they ultimately what should they be doing, and what should the businesses be doing?
One, make sure you have auto logging turned on if you have Microsoft 365. If you don't know how to do that, you can go on Bing, or I'll say Bing because it's funny. You can Google it too if you want. Whatever search engine or preference you have, DuckDuckGo, you want to do some of that. You can find out how to turn audit logging on. Absolutely should be turned on for everybody, just in case you want to turn on now. Once they get closer to releasing those logs, it'll be really interesting to see. But as long as the logs are turned on, if you have an incident, so if somebody gains access to one of your emails, maybe it's a business email compromise, it's going to make it easier to figure out what happened. And so that you can hire a firm and go back and say, okay, this is what happened. This is the actions we need to take to stop it, to remediate it now and then stop it in the future, or at least minimize the risk of it happening in the future.
So do you think people should be staying on these simple plans anyway, or should we be upgrading them also?
No. Yeah. You get what you pay for. If you buy a Kia Rio, you get a Kia Rio.
Yeah.
$20,000 car. A $3 mailbox is a $20,000 car.
Yeah. So
spend a little bit more, you're gonna get a lot more features, a lot more benefits. There's a lot more security to it. Maybe some other things that you're gonna get. But hey, and by the way, I'm not trying to dog on a Kia Rio. It's actually a really good car. It's a $20,000 car, which in today's world is sadly not low, like bottom barrel. So, but yeah.
$20 used to get your full shopping cart of groceries too.
Yeah. Now what's the average car? Like 44,000, 45,000, something like that, I think.
So anyway, the takeaway for this week, guys, if you're using Office 365, make sure that you've got audit logging. Make sure you guys have turned on audit logging. If you need help, like Chris said, go to Google, go to Bing, or comment below, or reach out to us, and we can help you get that thing. But the big takeaway for everybody is, what should we use for what should we come up with for lead-in music?
That's far more important than what we just talked about. We need lead-out music too. So if you want to give us 2 different genres, song options, that's cool too.
Cool. That's all I got for this week.
Or we're going to AI generate this. We can AI generate it. We'd have some fun with that.
AI music. There we go.
Yeah, we can do it.
Pretty soon we'll have an AI show, and we'll just hit go.
My avatar will be much better looking though than me.
Anyway, have a good week, everybody, and we'll talk to you next week.